This is David Kroodsma with Hub Culture. I'm joined by Harry Verhaar, the Senior Director of Energy and Climate Change at Philips Lighting. Thanks for joining us, Harry.
You're welcome, Dave.
Can you tell me just a little bit more about Philips Lighting?
Yeah, so Philips Lighting is part of Philips, which also has a healthcare and consumer lifestyle division. But then in lighting, we are the global market leader in lighting, actually providing what we call meaningful solutions to consumers, but also for professional applications like offices, schools, cities, really key important, in all regions of the world.
Philips Lighting has called for a phase out, and actually you're leading a lot of initiatives around the world to phase out incandescent bulbs. Why?
Actually, if you look at sustainable development in general, and then in lighting, the switch from old inefficient to energy efficient lighting, it's actually nothing more and nothing less than an innovation agenda, because you move faster from old to new technology. And the reason that we are so, let's say, so focused on this subject is that it is a triple win. So it's good for consumers, because actually 80 or 90% to 90% of the cost and the environmental impact occurs during the user phase. So for them it's highly beneficial to switch to more efficient lighting solutions. They save a lot of money, but also they get a better light quality, and that's important for learning or for having, let's say, a livable city that feels good for living as well as for tourism. But secondly, it can make a major impact on the environment. I'll give a few numbers. But thirdly, this is also good, it just makes economic sense, because if you renovate the existing infrastructure of cities and buildings, that creates jobs. If you waste less energy, that can be spent on healthcare, education. So it's actually, and you save actually also the need to build expensive energy infrastructure. So I'll give you a few numbers. We did a global analysis on lighting. About 3/4 is inefficient, and in itself lighting is responsible for 19% of global electricity. If you then see that globally you can save 40% of energy, that's a lot of money. That's 128 billion euro.
14% of energy.
40.
Oh, 40%.
40.
Okay.
And that's 128 billion euros, so almost, let's say, around $180 billion. That's quite significant. But also in carbon savings, 670 million tons of carbon, so contributing actually also to a better future.
So you could save almost over 0.5 gigaton of carbon.
That's correct.
Through lighting improvement.
But also talking about the economic aspects, globally it's around 640 power plants, and they cost $1.5 billion each to construct. So if you don't have to do that, you can spend the money elsewhere, and there are, of course, priorities enough.
And I know that you've been involved in this initiative for a number of years, helping Philips lead on phasing out incandescent bulbs. Yep. Can you tell me more about how you got involved in it, and then what Philips has done over the last 4 years, is it?
It's around 7 now, but then as actually, we call it now sustainable development, that's the word, but then this innovation agenda has always been in our DNA, but it's particularly since exactly 7 years ago that we started a dedicated program on energy and climate change. Because at that time, we were also looking at how can we further grow the business. And we saw actually the energy and climate change subject coming up, and we projected that within a couple of years, this would top the political and the business agenda. So at that time, looking actually at what the switch would mean in terms of savings for our customers, in terms of carbon savings for the environment, but also in terms of growth, we designed actually this whole program, which includes, most of all, motivating people to switch, because you get a more productive and a more attractive environment to live, work and play. And then you have the savings aspects, but most of all, like I mentioned, you create more productive offices, more let's say, cities which have higher livability aspects, more, let's say, schools that have more effective learning. But secondly, a part of the agenda is how to stimulate policy measures. And that's actually because you just can't reach 6.5 billion people and change their behavior, because people have so much more on their minds. But also because the scientific projections are such that we really need the speed and the depth of the transitions to accomplish their full benefits. So these two parts are key, and that is also why from the very beginning we brought the global lighting industry together.
So I know that Philips has been involved in trying to convince governments to make the phase out of incandescent bulbs, and there's been this great competition actually between the US and the EU.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, that was actually quite interesting because the European Union had started talking about the subject, I would say, as a major economy before all the others. But then while they were working on the legislation, at a certain moment we made a call, it was in December 2003, to globally phase out incandescent light bulbs, because both it contributes a lot. Incandescent light bulbs are so vastly inefficient, it's just sheer logic to phase them out. But then actually, so the US came into the picture a little later, but they were faster in turning this into legislation. So it was a chapter in the Energy Independence and Security Act in December 2007. And that actually, with a date to phase out incandescent light bulbs in the US as of the 1st of January 2014. And then actually the European Commission felt, hey, we are being outdone by the US. And they wanted to select a date that came before that date, the 1st of January 2014. So Europe is now in the midst of phase out. So since a little over a year, we can no longer use incandescent light bulbs above 100 watts. This year, the 75. And then within 2 years from now...
In the whole EU?
In the whole EU. So actually 2/3 have already disappeared.
Wow.
And within 2 years from now, so with final date, 1st of September.
And what was the EU's date? So the EU's date was what was it before the US said 2014?
It's a phasing actually to make it also logistically feasible for our customers and for retail do-it-yourselfer, because you talk about 2/3 of the shelves. And last year alone, we as Philips, but also that goes for other manufacturers, we have redesigned and restocked 2,500 kilometers, so like 1,500 miles of shelf space in Europe with the new energy efficient products and let's say the new layouts.
And has it been challenging as a company to completely rework your product line?
In what sense do you mean that?
Has it been challenging to switch, to change your products? And I mean, I imagine it's hard because you had a whole division of your company that was making incandescent bulbs that no longer works. You have to shut down factories. Is that hard?
Actually, it takes also a mental switch, because of course, then as a player that has been around for more than 100 years, we both market the old and the new technology, and of course we'd like the old technology to disappear. But the one mistake that one could make is to stick too long to the old technology, and let's say, and then incrementally improve it and evolutionary, bring the cost down. But at a certain moment you need to see where does the future go, and that goes to energy efficient lighting and more LED solutions. So you need to be as fast as if you were a new startup, because otherwise, of course, we also want to be amongst the survivors, and actually we want to lead the pack in the whole transition to LED lighting.
Harry, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I'm David Kroodsma with Hub Culture, joined by Harry Verhaar, the Senior Director of Energy and Climate Change at Philips Lighting. Thanks so much.
Thank you.